Today is April 3rd. Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation. My name is Vasyl Samokhvalov, and joining us online is Ivan Fedorov, the mayor of Melitopol. Mr. Ivan, good afternoon. Good afternoon. First question. Today in the morning there was an explosion in Melitopol. We would like to find out more details. What happened? Could it be the fact that people who started working with Russians, they have some criminal background, and it's nothing other than their retaliation for what they do with one another? Today at 8:30 in the morning, there was another explosion in one of the streets of Melitopol. An automobile was blown up, which was carrying collaborationist Zubrev. It's a quite infamous character in temporarily occupied Melitopol region since 2014. Back then he was the deputy of the Melitopol City Council from Communist Party. Back then he was accused of bribery. He was trying to make a commotion in Melitopol City Council. He was the head of Russian Sprint there, and he was under investigation for years and years. So he was about to be brought to justice. Since the very first days of the occupation of Melitopol, he was committed to collaboration with the enemy, so he was appointed the proxy governor. And there are quite interesting facts that in the spring 2022 his social networks were hacked and there was a necrology, but back then it was only the necrology was posted on his social network, but back then it was only the result of hacking. What's going on here is the very hot weeks what's happened in the ranks of the enemy. They start every day with the bad news, and regarding Zubrev himself, we start getting news that he did not survive. And there were doctors fighting for his life, however, they were not able to save his life. It's not yet 100% confirmed information, but it's 90% true, I would say. Another question is about the missile strike on the depot in Melitopol. So as the transport hub, to what extent can Russians still use Melitopol? We know there were strikes on the bridges and the railways too. Well, really, the enemy picked our city as the logistic and administrative center, while logistic hub, because Melitopol is the only hub, the only transport hub where the automobile road and railroad logistics overlap. And since the beginning of the week there were some explosions in the depot. First, the electric workshop was destroyed, where the repair base of the enemy was located. So all the vehicles which were being repaired back then is currently unfit for use. The explosions continued yesterday, and there were also explosions in the substations which were supplying the electricity to our railway. So currently the capabilities for use of the railway are quite limited. First of all, due to the lack of electric power for the railway, and on top of that a lot of railways are destroyed, which also limits their capability for its use. And also yesterday's explosions resulted in destruction of a number of locomotives which were located in the depot. And last week we also find out the names of the people who were directly responsible for delivery of arms and weapons from the temporarily occupied Crimea. Arms, weapons, ammunition, everything. And they are responsible for the transportation of the metal ore from the Melitopol mines. So we know now who are the top-level officials. We know their names. Now these people see what's going on with the collaborationists, so they're in panic. A lot of collaborationists don't survive, so those people don't want to cooperate with the enemy anymore. I think we will continue to provide such information in other areas of the life of occupational government officials. How do you evaluate the level of logistic losses of the Russians? How can it what may be the consequences for the supply of the ammunition and arms and weapons to the Zaporizhia region? Well, unfortunately now 90% of the logistics is coming from continental Russia and not only occupied Crimea, from the regions of Russia that border on our country. So after the Crimean bridge was closed, after it got tired and then started operating again, so 70% of the logistics is coming through the land corridor between Russian Federation and Crimea. So for the time being, we did not close all the logistics. Yes, we restricted them, and we forced the enemy to change their plans we created problems for them, for sure. We have questions on the floor. Please, Irina Mamchur, Ukrinform. Just yesterday, I think you posted information on your Telegram channel with reference to the resistance movement of Crimean Tatars and Ukrainians. So there was information that the occupiers kill collaborationists during their gesture of goodwill near Vasilivka checkpost. Do we have any confirmation? Do we have any evidences that they do it, first of all? And secondly, do you forecast any other gestures of goodwill coming shortly? Thank you for your question. First of all, I'm not ready to make any forecast. Our goal today is not to make forecasts, but rather to help our armed forces to make those gestures of goodwill happen the soonest possible, and the soonest possible we could liberate our civilians who are currently live in the occupied territories. As to the collaboration is executed by the enemy themselves, do we have the confirmed facts? No, we do not have so, but do we have such examples? Yes, obviously we do. We know that the occupational police, they have the lists of collaborationists who will not be let out of the occupied territory, and also we have information that such lists are being compiled in other bodies and occupational authorities, not only in police. Also, when we see the liberated Kherson region, not all of the collaborationists were let out from there. A lot of them are currently under investigation. They were arrested by our law enforcement agencies, and those lists, they are the evidences that nobody needs the traitors. The collaborationists know too much. This is why they will be either liquidated during the withdrawal of Russian forces, or they will be intentionally left there and handed over to the Ukrainian authorities. Okay, so can you tell us what is the approximate number of people on those lists? Are we talking about dozens or hundreds of people or thousands of people? Well, talking about the Zaporizhia region, it's in thousands. As to the Melitopol region, we have at least 700 people who agreed to cooperate with the enemy. So if we multiply it, so we can extrapolate to the territory of the Zaporizhia region. Should they all be liquidated? No, definitely no. It's only dozens of people who are about to be liquidated. Thank you very much. There will be another question in English. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is Lorenzo Cremonesi from Corriere della Sera. We just spoke a few weeks ago. How are you? And thank you for receiving our question. Sir, it looks like, if you look broadly, that this activity of partisan, of killing or attacking collaborators is like preparing the ground of the next offensive.
Я не чую.
Я потім перекладу.
So, can you give us, I'm not asking you to forecast for the future also because I presume it's a kind of military secret, but can you tell us a bit about, can you give us some of the numbers of the recent events? How many attacks, how many people you think have been injured or killed, how many collaborators have been killed or injured? Can you give us a visual of how many Russian facilities, military positions? I remember before Kherson fall last November, there were a lot of attacks there, and remember the story of the Yellow Ribbon, this organization which was acting there. Do you have a kind of Melitopol Yellow Ribbon? Can you give us a bit of portrait of the situation? Grazie, thank you.
Якщо не почули, то запитання таке, що ми вам подякували за нещодавно.
Yes, we see that well, maybe you misheard something. The journalist appreciated your recent attack. He said that it looks like the attacks of the guerrillas. It looks like the preparation for platform for attack of the Ukrainian forces. Well, the occupiers start suffering in the temporarily occupied territories. The intensification started about a couple of weeks ago when there was an explosion of one of the cars of the collaborationists who was responsible for the logistic communication for the passenger transportation in temporarily occupied territories. And then something happened with the tree, where one of the occupiers was passing, and then there is the explosion of the car of Zubarev. Can we get it connected with the intensification of warfare in Zaporizhia region? Yes, we can do it. Does it say that the counteroffensive has started? Well, definitely not, because it will be the military who will command the counteroffensive. Definitely we see that we start sowing panic. It creates commotion in the temporarily occupied territories. We see that the occupiers start discussing the ways how to flee the temporarily occupied territories, but it's impossible to flee from there. Thank you very much.
Yes, a little bit of, first of all, if you can, please try to give us a bit, kind of a number. Can you give us some number? You say in the last 2 weeks we saw identification of attacks. How many? And secondly, can you give us a little more of detail about this person being probably, you say you're 90% sure but not totally sure, killed? This is Mr. Zubrev. Can you give us the full name, Zubrev, a little more of detail about him? Thank you.
Я ж на початку виступу сказав.
Well, as I started, I told the biography of Mr. Zubrev from the beginning. Since 2014, he was in Communist Party. He was under criminal investigation. His full name is Maxim Zubarev. Well, I don't remember his full biography, but he was a keen representative of the Russian world. So he was standing for their interests, and he was provoking those narratives in the temporarily occupied territories of Zaporizhia region.
Sorry, if you can give some number of the people of the attacks of the last 2 weeks. You're saying in the last 2 weeks there was identification and increasing of attacks.
За останні 2 тижні було
Within the last 2 weeks, there were three collaborationists were liquidated or injured. Well, thank you for the details. Joining us online was the mayor of Melitopol, Fedorov. Thank you for your work, and we'll continue our work tomorrow. See you.